Now on to video 2 of Cristobal at 22Z on the 1st. You started seeing it LSCO water is upgraded to free at this point. About right in here on 29th. There's a IR shuttle comes back trying to blow over the center. Beginning into early morning on the 2nd. 10 p.m. on the 1st. 10 a.m. along with radar and surface outfit from Mexican that the bus has changed a little in organization or strength sensitivity advisory. It's kept at 25 knots. We're at 270 by 6. And this system was forecast to become 50 miles per hour with the 48 hours still. Here's the estimates based on the models. It was slower than the ECMWS neighbors, which had more west and south. Foreign advisory stated depression. It's 30 knots now because surface overstress for the AS scat showed 27 knot vectors. Moving at 270 by 2. Still forecasted to get to 50 miles per hour by 48 hours, but this time it's increased to 65 by 120. And this is for 12Z on the 2nd. You see convection forming over the center, where the center approximately is. As you get in the midday on the 2nd, you have nice convection forming over the center. Nice LSC. Here's the Tang advisory, advisory 4. Still depression, but recon is getting into the system. But they keep it at 30 knots for now. About the same strength. You see this out light as you get in the midday on the 2nd. There's about where the LC is, the wind shift. Here's the vortex, 1005. 31 knots at the surface, about 44 knots at flight level. Upgraded Cristobal very shortly after that advisory, based on this data, to 40 miles per hour, southwest or 230 degrees. Here's the track, pretty much moved southeastward and then northward. The track was actually more like this, more overland, and it came out, so it got weaker because of it. Here's the flight pattern. Nice convection. We go throughout the day. We see the system moving southeastward. Getting better organized. About 4 p.m. indicate winds out of tropical storm force. But it's holding at 35 knots for this advisory. This one shows it going over land, weakening the depression. Then at 60 hours, going back over water, it's re-strengthening. Definitely getting better organized as the sun sets. 997 millibars for this recon. Here's the vortex showing 996 millibars. 52 knots flight level. going south, eastward, towards the coast. Here's our system, 21Z. Here's the models. A lot of them are still kept. These see the a lot of them kept still off land for some reason, but this was forecast to go over land by this time. I think the GFS did a better job of this system. It was clear it was going to be making landfall at this point. Began early on in the 3rd. There's the 10 p.m. advisor of the 2nd. They forecasted a strength of 60 miles per hour within 12 hours. Definitely move towards land. 4 a.m. 994 millibars, 50 knots. Over land, becoming a depression. Then back over water. I think they actually did a pretty good job. There's morning hours on the 3rd. Moving southward towards the coast. Making landfall on 13Z on the 3rd. See the reconnator making landfall. 10 a.m. to 38. It's over land now. Not 13Z. Forecast that we remain over land for about 36 to 48 hours, and we will emerge over off of Mexico, restriking. Here's some pictures of the flooding. Moving further inland. Here's your track. You get to 17Z at this point. Z. 4 p.m. Advisory 9. It's at 45 knots. Weakening because of the land, but still showing a system that we can do depression and restrict the water. Here's the track at this point. They actually did a really good job. I mean, overland, it shows it moving off, restricting as it heads towards Louisiana, maybe slightly to the west of the actual track. As we get into later in the day, there's advisory 10 p.m. on the 3rd. Lowered to 40 knots. Forecast is still a weekly depression. They come over water, restricting. Definitely overland now. 10 a.m. on the 4th. 35 knots. Still moving, drifting pretty much southward at 2 knots. Still forecasted to do what the NC has been saying the last 3 or 4 advisories. They obviously have it pinned. Here's the 10 a.m. on the 4th. Here comes a depression. Still said to do exactly what the last advisory before, pretty much. 4 p.m. They say it's becoming quite disorganized. There's very little deep convection at this point. Middle land volvo. But still pretty much showed to do what last Friday the value before it said it would do. Here's about where the center is. Still near in the Yucatan at this point. 5Z on the 5th. Here's 14 by 14, 10 p.m. on the 4th. It's not very well organized. You can see that 30 knots. And it was forecasted still to move back over water, re-strengthen. 4 a.m. on the 5th, 25 to 30 knots based on an AS gap. The bike continues to degrade over land. Still forecasted to do the same thing. 8Z. You definitely see the LSD over the 10. 11 a.m. on the 5th. Still over land. Still forecasted to do exactly what they have said the last 3 to 4 advisories. Or more. I mean, come out, re-strike, and become a tropical storm again and head towards central Louisiana. You definitely see the LSD reforming off the coast at this point. Surface observation showing, yeah, the center's probably in here. As you get into the 5th. Actually, I don't think it's right there. I think it's more like right in here. Okay. Here's an outrated merge over the Gulf of Mexico. There's 16A. It strengthens to a tropical storm as it's moving over the Gulf of Mexico. 40 miles per hour. North at 360 degrees at 12 miles per hour. Here's it moving over the Gulf of Mexico. Here's quick scat. Friday 17, 4 p.m. on the 5th. It's into the Gulf of Mexico. 35 knots. Forecast is straight to 60 miles per hour and make landfall on central Louisiana. p.m. on the 5th, upgraded to 40 knots, 998 millibars, based on recon data. Pretty much the same sound on dams for tracking intensity. Wasn't looking very good early on the 6th at this point. I mean, Friday 19, 40 knots. Same song and dance. A little bit more convection. You get a 10Z on the 6th. See how great my archive is. I mean, a lot of work. I mean, to be able to do this. Around 11, 12Z on the 6th, you start seeing the LC become stronger. Convection forming around it. Advisory 20, it lacks the appearance of a classical cyclone. I mean, at this point, but it's getting better organized. And recon found when the sport's 45 knots. Still the same thing. 50 knots by landfall. Here's the recon track. Midday on the 6th. Here's the flooding all Louisiana and Grand Isles. I mean, it floods really easy here. I mean, by 21, 4 p.m. on the 6th. Alexa appearance and structure of a tropical cyclone. A larger wind field. Winds kept at 45 knots. Moving north at 10 knots. Still forecast to do the same thing. 50 knots by 24 hours for its landfall. Here's Cristobal, large wind field for 17Z on the 6th. You start seeing more convection blowing through the center and a little bit more tightening at this point. More tropical looking. Here's even more convection forming over the center. More centered, synthetic convection, meaning tropical, more tropical, less barocritic forcing. By 22, 10 p.m. on the 6th. 45 knots. Northward at 10 knots. 60 miles per hour still for landfall. 994 millibars based on recon. More convection blowing over the center as it moves towards Louisiana. Z on the 7th. 10 a.m. on the 7th. Still disorganized. Doppler showing 55 to 58 knots at 5,000 feet. Let's page from 45 to 48 knots. They went with 45 knots at this point. And they really said no strengthening at this. You still had a very broad system, but you had convection forming near the center. You have frictional forces, which helps strengthen and totally compact the system some more. How'd you get in the midday on the 7th? 994 millibars for a little bit earlier in the morning recon. You see how it's moving close to the land, you have a well-defined LSC. About ready to make the landfall on the mouth of Mississippi. LSC. See the wind barbs. I mean, it was about in here at this point. 4 p.m. Little vortices moving around a larger LSC, held at 45 knots. It makes landfall in southeast Louisiana. at 5:10 p.m. Central Daylight Time on the 7th. Definitely you see pretty much the winds. It's overland while we're in here. Moving inland into Louisiana. We made a tropical storm for 11 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 40 knots at this time. Moving further inland. Early morning on the 8th. Become a depression overland. Moving throughout the 8th. Moving further inland into Arkansas. Okay, that is your report based on my archives of Amanda and Cristobal.